Imagine a colonial governor in a powdered wig delivering a fiery speech, vowing to eradicate the pirate scourge. Now, picture that same night in a dark cove. His most trusted agent is handing sacks of coin to a pirate captain in exchange for barrels of sugar. The men who built empires were the primary investors in those they publicly hanged. This isn't a story about pirates. It's a story about the hypocrisy upon which wealth is built. This governor is no abstraction. He could be Charles Eden, the governor of North Carolina, who secretly did business with Blackbeard himself, legitimizing his plunder. This is how the pillars of society, governors, merchants, and officials, secretly created and financed the very black market that made pirates fabulously wealthy. These were not random deals. This was a well-oiled economic system hidden in plain sight. It was the Amazon Prime of the 18th century, faster, cheaper, and incomparably more efficient than official imperial trade. Pirates weren't just robbers. They were an express delivery service. In this video, we will expose the financial engine behind the golden age of piracy. We will analyze the 3 key commodities that were more valuable than gold, and we will name the real governors who hunted pirates by day and became their top business partners by night. To understand how they collaborated, we must first understand what made them enemies on paper. The root cause was the British Navigation Acts. These draconian laws turned the colonies into economic prisons, forcing respectable gentlemen to find workarounds, with the help of gentlemen of fortune. These rules were simple and ruthless. Imagine the British Empire as a giant supermarket and the colonies as its branches. They were forbidden from buying goods anywhere else. They could only sell their products to the headquarters at prices dictated by London. This is mercantilism, slow, incredibly expensive, and with no choice. The Navigation Act of 1663, for example, required all European goods bound for the colonies to first pass through an English port. There they were taxed before being shipped across the Atlantic. Your order of tools or medicine could take half a year to arrive, while the price of basic fabrics or sugar skyrocketed tenfold. This monopoly meant that goods in Boston or Port Royal cost up to 4 cents more than in London. It was legalized robbery that stifled any initiative. The official path led to ruin. And then a new supplier appeared on the scene, the pirate. He wasn't just a plunderer, he was an alternative delivery service. He would capture a Spanish ship loaded with sugar and offer it to you at 1/3 of the official price, with delivery by tomorrow. Pirates didn't bring chaos. They broke a monopoly and forcibly created a free market. Economist Peter Leeson calls them the radical free traders of the 18th century. They were enemies not of order, but of an inefficient, monopolistic order. Put yourself in the shoes of a Jamaican resident. You need rum. The official merchant asks for 10 shillings a bottle and promises delivery in 3 months. In a port tavern, you're offered better quality rum for 3 shillings right now. The choice between loyalty to the crown and survival was obvious, and this choice was made openly in the business centers of the time. Smuggling wasn't just acceptable, it was a vital part of the economy. But it wasn't just about rum and sugar. There was a list of strategic goods more important than any treasure, for which governors were willing to risk their careers and their lives. This was the oil of the 18th century, naval stores like tar, pitch, ropes, and timber for masts. Without them, a colony's fleet and its entire trade would become a pile of useless wood. Golden doubloons in treasure chests. That's a Hollywood myth. The reality was far more mundane and profitable. Most captured ships were filled with flour, textiles, lumber, and wine. Pirates weren't hunting for diamonds. They were like truck drivers hijacking rigs full of merchandise. Their goal wasn't a unique artifact, but a marketable cargo that could be sold at the nearest market before sunset. But the most terrifying and lucrative commodity was people. The British Royal African Company held a cruel monopoly on the supply of enslaved people to the colonies. By capturing their slave ships, pirates broke this system. They offered planters human cargo at a discount of up to 25%, bypassing taxes and official channels. It was a pure, bloody business built on violating one monopoly to strengthen another, even more horrific one. Finally, there were survival goods: gunpowder, cannons, sailcloth, and ropes. These were all under the strict control of the mother country. By plundering military or merchant vessels, pirates became the suppliers of these critical resources. Buying from them wasn't a matter of greed, it was a matter of security. It was like an isolated country today buying parts for its air defense systems on the darknet. The choice between breaking the law and facing total destruction was clear. But having the goods was only half the battle. They had to be laundered to be made legitimate. For this, an entire shadow infrastructure was created, an invisible exchange where pirate rum was transformed into legal cargo. Corrupt vice admiralty courts played a key role. For a bribe, a judge would declare a captured ship and its contents a legitimate prize or salvaged property, issuing official papers that laundered the stolen goods on an institutional level. These papers were signed in port cities, but the real work wasn't done in a courtroom. It was done in the places we think of as pirate dens: Nassau, Port Royal, Madagascar. These were not anarchic lairs, they were the offshore economic zones of the 18th century. They had warehouses, taverns for negotiations, and an entire ecosystem of services, from ship repair to fencing stolen goods. At its peak, Nassau wasn't just a base. It was the Silicon Valley for startups in illegal maritime logistics, a place where capital, talent, and infrastructure for a disruptive business model were concentrated. At the heart of this model was not a pirate, but a respectable merchant. He never met the cutthroats in person, he worked through their agents. His job was to appraise the cargo, arrange a secret unloading, and prepare false documents. A perfect example is Adam Baldridge on Madagascar. He built an entire fortress market where pirates from the Indian Ocean could safely sell their plunder. He wasn't a pirate, he was an infrastructure provider for piracy, and he became fabulously wealthy. The mechanics were honed to perfection. Goods were offloaded onto small boats and taken to secret warehouses. There, they were repackaged and relabeled. Stolen Spanish sugar became Brazilian sugar, salvaged from a shipwreck. It was like cutting expensive whiskey with a cheaper one, but on an industrial scale. A small batch of legal goods was mixed with a huge shipment of contraband, and legitimate papers from a corrupt port official were issued for the entire lot. In the end, the whole product acquired a legal taste and aroma. Imagine this story from the perspective of a barrel of brandy. I was born in France, destined for Cadiz. We were captured by a ship flying a black flag. I was sold for half price to a merchant in Nassau. My French label was scraped off and an English one was glued on. A month later, I was being served at the table of the very governor who had promised to hang the captain who seized me. The money from my sale went toward a generous donation for the construction of a new Anglican church in the city. Thus I, a French brandy stolen by pirates, served to strengthen faith and morality in an English colony. This system was so effective that its architects were the very top of the colonial administration. New York Governor Benjamin Fletcher, Charles Eden of North Carolina. Their names are directly linked to the greatest pirates of their time, including Blackbeard. Fletcher was rumored to take a bribe of 100 pounds sterling from every pirate ship for the right to trade peacefully in his city. This was a fortune. He wasn't just turning a blind eye, he was selling state protection in bulk. But for a governor, this was more than just personal enrichment. It was a tool of governance. Pirates were his instruments. They injected scarce goods and hard currency into the colony when London sent only orders. Their cannons and ships could serve as an unofficial line of defense against the Spanish. To a governor, a pirate wasn't a criminal. He was a high-risk asset in his geopolitical portfolio, an asset with high returns and enormous legal risks. In the 1690s, that same Governor Fletcher didn't just take bribes, he openly sold privateering commissions to pirates, essentially licensing them to plunder in exchange for a cut. New York became a safe harbor and a financial hub for pirates of the Indian Ocean. Historians argue that it was this pirate money, laundered through the city's economy, that laid the foundation for New York's future financial might. Wall Street was, in part, literally built on pirate gold. Let's use a hypocrisy scale from 1 to 10. Benjamin Fletcher, who publicly called pirates bold and courageous men, gets a solid 8 out of 10. But a 10 out of 10, that goes to Woody's Rogers. A former privateer hired by the crown to hunt pirates, he knew the system from the inside, which is why he was so ruthlessly effective at destroying it. And here is the ultimate irony. After being appointed governor of the Bahamas to eradicate piracy, Rogers invested his entire fortune in the effort. He died in poverty and debt. The one man who genuinely fought. The system was crushed by it. The system worked until it grew too big and too brazen. The wealth flowing past the royal treasury became so immense that it was noticed in London. The empire realized its own officials were robbing it blind, and so it decided to destroy not just the pirates, but the black market it had created. The final straw was the capture of the Mughal ship Ganj-e-Sawai by the pirate Henry Every in 1695. This was not just a robbery. It was an international scandal that brought England to the brink of war with India. The powerful East India Company lost a fortune and used all its influence in Parliament to demand that the crown end piracy once and for all. The War of the Spanish Succession ended in 1713. The Treaty of Utrecht left thousands of privateers, legal wartime pirates, unemployed. They had ships, weapons, and skills, making piracy their only viable career path. This sparked the last, most furious surge of the Golden Age. In response, the empire employed a carrot-and-stick approach. The stick was Royal Navy squadrons and ruthless pirate hunters. The carrot was the king's pardon, surrender, and all would be forgiven. This move shattered the pirate brotherhood from within. The most cynical example was Benjamin Hornigold, one of the founding fathers of the Pirate Republic in Nassau. He accepted the amnesty and then became a pirate hunter, eagerly pursuing his former comrades, including his best student Blackbeard. But the most dangerous enemies were their former partners. The very governors and merchants who had built their fortunes on them for years were the first to lead the hunt. They knew every secret cove, every distribution scheme. To prove their loyalty to the crown, they launched a campaign of terror. The bodies of hanged pirates were displayed in iron cages at harbor entrances. The body of Charles Vane hung for months at the entrance to Port Royal. It was an advertisement, a gruesome announcement that the old business model was closed for good. The golden age of piracy ended, but the system built on legal inefficiency and greed never disappeared. It simply changed its flag. Pirates traded their schooners for encrypted servers and their treasure chests for anonymous cryptocurrency wallets. But the essence of a shadow economy, whether it's the darknet or an offshore zone, remains the same. Exploit loopholes in the rules to gain profits unavailable to others. This is how every black market is born. Its protocol of hypocrisy has been unchanged for centuries and consists of 3 steps. First, find a legal inefficiency, a loophole in the system where official rules are too slow, expensive, or simply foolish. A black market isn't the disease, it's a symptom. Second, legitimize it through respectable people. A scheme's success depends not on cutthroats, but on immaculate lawyers and bankers who launder the assets. Think of the Panama Papers. Their key figures were not drug lords. Third, use public condemnation as the best cover. The louder the elites demand a crackdown on a problem, the less suspicion there is that they are its primary beneficiaries. Politicians who decry the evils of offshore accounts are often their best customers. And here is the main point. The story of pirates is not an ode to freedom. It is a manual on how a system built on hypocrisy eventually consumes itself. The pirates weren't the disease itself. They were merely the fever. An acute symptom showing that the entire imperial organism was profoundly ill. So who were these governors and merchants in the end? Were they brilliant pragmatists saving their colonies by the only means available? Or were they common criminals profiting from chaos? Write one word in the comments, pragmatists or criminals. After all, the line between creating a new market and committing a crime often depends on who gets to write the history books.